to the First Focal Plane podcast with Sean and Rooster.
Underoos.
Underoos.
Yeah,
we should probably add a guy to that. Welcome to the First Focal Plane podcast with Sean and Rooster. Oh, and also Chris.
You know what? Just let me edit the video, and
Okay.
you can have the same voice you've got right now. Welcome to the First Focal Plane podcast with Sean and Rooster and Chris.
Right. It's like that little guy in The Simpsons way in the back.
I'll do my best Ralph Wiggum.
Well, everybody, welcome to the First Focal Plane podcast, episode 39. 39. Oh, if only I was 39 again. I think Doug Rodenbush is about the only guy here, only person here that's older than me. Doug, where are you?
Yeah. Show up, Doug. Come on.
World's tiniest violin for the old man.
Yeah, never mind. You know what? If I find out where you sleep, you're in trouble.
I'm on Google, motherfucker.
I wouldn't take you while you're awake. You know, when you get
Careful,
old, you learn to fight
knives.
dirty. Yeah. All right, we're brought to you today, as always, by EM Precision Rifles in Leduc, Alberta. As Canada's premier precision builder of lightweight hunting rifle starter packages and extended long range. Is it extended? Sure. ELR rigs. EM Precision has the right stuff to get you into the field, onto the range, and into the winner's circle. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and their website at emprifles.ca.
I always thought the E stood for exceptionally.
Yes, exceptionally
long range.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there, because we are also brought to you by Precision or Bolt Action Coffee. You ever fuck something up before you even start doing it?
Every day,
life.
buddy. Every day.
Life.
Guess what, guys? Tonight's show is brought to you by Bolt Action Coffee. Get into the precision specialty coffee game with Bolt Action Coffee. With exclusive award-winning roasts boasting coffee cupping scores of 85.5 or higher, Bolt Action Coffee roasts will get your morning started right and keep you on target all day long. Specially brewed with the precision shooting community in mind. Choose from Scopes Up, Overwatch, and Suppressed. And what's the new dark blend called?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me take
It's a really long name. It has something to do with canoeing. Son of a...
I know.
I venture to say it has something to do with coffee.
No, the name it has the word canoe in it.
It's Midnight Canoe Trip or something, isn't it?
Midnight, yeah, like midnight canoe trip. Is that what it is?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, Recce.
That's exactly it.
I wonder what that's a reference to. Anyway, try their new dark roast, Midnight Canoe Trip. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and on their website at boltactioncoffee.com. Use code FIRSTFocalPlane at checkout for 10% off your order.
That's right. And if you don't want Chris to take you on a midnight canoe trip, you should probably take a call sign 66 course. They are a veteran-based organization founded to facilitate multi-generational passage of information, ballistic applications, R&D, which is research and development for you, Kurt, and shooter development. The omnidirectional passage of information is key to the community's success and growth, as well as our organizational philosophy is such that we all have something to offer. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and their website at callsign66.ca. They have many classes going on, including one in Tabor, I believe, in July. And that's their, I can't remember. I got to look. But they got courses filling up. Check out their website, callsign66.ca. Tell them we sent you. And,
we sent you them?
we sent them to you. Yes, I know English. Yeah. Check them out, callsign66.ca.
Was Tabor the one that they just announced?
I don't know. They have a bunch. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah, because I thought they just announced a different one.
Well, they've been filling up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Let me just take a quick gander here.
So the one on June 12th. Yeah, we'll fill the time here. The one on June 12th is put on by Gothic Line Armory. Does not say where.
Yeah, it doesn't have their course calendar. I thought they had a course calendar on their website. Shop online right there.
There you go.
Nope, that's not it. Anyway, they're upcoming courses. Here we go. So we got a Precision and Accuracy Fundamental Seminar March 20th and 21st. That is this coming weekend. That's in Valley View, Alberta. They have an LEO sniper course, which
That
people
was the
like
one I
us
was
cannot
thinking
go. That's in Penticton, April 14th to 16th. There's a wind spotting fundamental seminar April 17th to 19th in Penticton as well. That's for us civvies as well. And positional fundamental seminar, which is good for any shooter to take in consort, May 15th to 16th. So, yeah, check them out. Callsign66.ca. So,
Do it.
anyway, we are joined by a very special guest.
It's not just the mustache,
mustache
it's the
precedes
brain
me.
behind the mustache.
That's right. He writes words
It
on
really
paper.
has all been the mustache. Like, you remember Men in Black, the alien with the guy and the head? It's just the mustache. It's
I
just
only
doing all
remember the
stuff. I just do what
Balkanian.
it bids. I only remember small snippets of that movie, probably from the eye flashy thing, or the
Right.
many years between now and Will Smith being an A-list celebrity. But
How
Will Smith
dare
was an
you,
A-list
sir?
celebrity?
How dare
time
you?
is a cruel mistress, even to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, poor guy. Are they not doing a remake of Boot of that? Like, I thought
thought they were supposed to be a hit or something, because they did a reboot of Saved by the Bell too, and I don't really know why. But
Guys, the 90s
like, it feels
are
like an
gone.
answer to a
Just let 'em
question
go.
no one asked.
No kidding.
Yeah, they were good days. Let them die. Not in these
It's
bad
like when
days.
Glock brings out a new handgun.
Glock's brought out a new handgun.
It's
I thought
like
they just
when-
brought out the G17, and it's just kind of been like we just blink and it kind of
That's
shit, a
what
new
I'm
one.
talking about.
Yeah.
Every
This
time
one
they bring
has
out
a
new
lanyard
handgun,
loop.
it's an answer to a question that nobody asked.
This one has
That's
a
always a running
lanyard
joke
loop.
at SHOT Show. Like it's it's super innovative. We added finger grooves, and then 4 years later, it's super innovative. No finger grooves, and you're kind of like, yeah, you're literally just come on.
What's old is new again.
This one is 10. Give us $900 Canadian.
Hey, the prices have gone a bit better lately. Well, they were, I guess, up until that buying surge down in the States, and everything's gone a bit nuts. But I bought a set of reloading dies on eBay because we're doing a reloading issue coming up, and like you literally can't find them. Even talking to industry folks trying to get like certain calibers,
Nice.
just not around. Yeah, I got a set. Yeah, like literally just a basic like Lee 10mm 40 Smith & Wesson set. It was like $220 US off eBay.
Suddenly reloading is vogue again.
I mean, I got my phone sitting on a case of surplus ammo that is probably worth more than the phone right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, right on.
And it was made by some Czech guys in the 70s. So,
It's vintage.
Saying, fuck
Vintage
you,
ammo.
Soviets. Yeah.
sell it to all the
Here's
gun
our-
hipsters out there like myself.
That's right. Well, you
We are out there.
Yeah, that's right. You are Mr. Dan Fritter. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan?
Enjoy long walks on the beach, single malt scotches,
Nice.
Honduran cigars predominantly. Some Dominicans can enter the frame. But in all seriousness, no, I'm
Still
35
cigars?
years old. Yeah, I'm into cars. So I got into publishing. So I obviously started Calibre up 10 years, going on 10 years, going out. It'll be 10 years in September. I graduated high school in 2003 and
What
desperately
was your
wanted a
GPA?
job. It wasn't bad, actually. It was like a 3.4-ish or something.
God, I really wish I knew what that meant.
B's-ish, mostly.
Okay, I know what
Um,
these are.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was just, I ended up going to university for African women's literature, and I studied that in Chinese history for about 7 years while I worked at a car magazine. Because I worked full-time. I wanted to work at Hot Rod Magazine, so I graduated and then immediately got in a car and drove to California to get a job down there. And they said, you need to go back home and get an education because you're 18 years old. So I came back, got an English degree. And they had said you need an English degree or experience. So I got a job at a car magazine called RPM Motoring Monthly, which still exists and operates out of Port Coquitlam. And I was their kind of resident hot rod muscle car guy for about 4 or 5 years. And then I bounced around MSN, Leguide Auto, which was a Quebecois car website magazine, and did that up until right around the recession hit. And obviously then when the automakers went bankrupt, things got pretty tough. Ended up doing the old call for a raise because you get an entry level job and they're like, we're going to pay you like crap, but in 6 months we'll give you a raise. So I called back in 6 months and like, actually, you don't have a job anymore. So I was pretty much jobless with no prospects for probably 6 months, having worked in magazines for at the point probably 8 years of my life. And I was shooting a lot, doing a lot of it recreationally at Vancouver Gun Club, getting really frustrated buying US gun magazines and just continuously spending $6-7 at the newsstand and then flipping through a magazine that had maybe 3 relevant pages where like I love reading about Ruger LCPs, but like it's a bit of a tease at some point. And you kind of want something you can buy, or content that reflects how you use guns, right? So I kind of just went out on my own, took all of my savings, and instead of being able to marry my now wife or buy a house, we started a company. Turns out in the Vancouver market, I probably should have just bought the house. Would have been an easier way to make money. But I started the gun magazine and we moved to Kelowna and now it's kind of history. So
that's the way to do it. Before we get too much into the conversation, can I just say that I really appreciate that Calibre Magazine comes shipped in plastic with a blank white piece of paper over top of it, because it reminds me of the 80s when you would walk into a gas station and
the best magazines came in bags.
Magazines. That's right. It's just that little piece of nostalgia, right?
I want to give people that hint of youth, that youthful vitality that might have escaped them, you know?
That's right.
I still remember those days. Yeah, that was actually early on. We used to not do that, but when we first had discussions with CSSA, which gets into that which we'll discuss obviously, they have subscriptions. And when we started talking about subscriptions in large volumes, we got into things about multi-family dwellings and privacy concerns. And I'm someone who, obviously I'm somewhat public facing, and that my real name, Daniel Fritter, is pretty much out there attached to guns somewhat inextricably. But I do value as much of the privacy that I can retain. So I try and keep my readers in mind. I do get letters from people saying, no, we should be prouder of being gun owners, which I totally understand. And I agree with, we should be more. Like, I've got gun stickers on my truck. I don't mind, but that's a personal decision I make, and I can't make it for the 28,000
for someone else. Yeah.
Like, that's not my choice. You know,
I would actually
one guy gets robbed,
agree.
one bad thing happens. Like, how do you, it's preventable. It's just so easy.
If someone wants to be loud and proud with their magazine, they can always read it out on their front porch smoking a Cuban.
Go for it.
If you've got the guy in the townhouse, or if you've got the guy with an asshole neighbor, you know, the last thing he needs to see is, that gun magazine. And next thing you know, you're fielding a call that is unwarranted, but still there, that you have to deal with.
And I think that speaks to some of the cultural problems that we face as gun owners with, like, especially now with some of the discussions around C-21 and the red flag laws, because you think, like, you have an asshole neighbor who, you know, like, or it's reversed. You're the asshole neighbor and your neighbor hates you and he just wants you to stop having friends over. He finds out you have a gun magazine delivered to your house. He finds out that all he has to do is make one call, and you know, then he suddenly is leaning over your fence going, well, I'm going to call the cops if you friends don't leave, and I'm going to get your guns taken. You know, pretty crappy. So, I mean, I wish it wasn't the circumstance. I wish that wasn't the way it was, but we have to deal with reality here.
Yeah, absolutely. Nostalgia and reality. I think it's a double whammy. Keep doing it.
Yeah. I want to make some jokes, but for the children in the audience, I won't. Nope. Won't go there.
Sean's
There's
over
a
18.
term. I want to say a term that relates to the 70s and that particular genre. We won't go there. We'll just kind of gesture it.
Sounds like you're convincing yourself.
Just tell Sean to put his earmuffs on, and then you can.
They
say
already
whatever
are.
you want. Yeah.
La.
Oh, sweet. So you got started with Calibre Magazine as a necessity, correct?
Choice and necessity. It was kind of that. I'd had the idea for years, probably about 3 years, that I've been thinking, you know, there should be a gun magazine out there for gun owners in Canada. Because it was so similar to the car content that I've been working on. I mean, Canada's not a big market in any enthusiast way, really. Like, there's no cohort of enthusiasts in Canada that consummate a large enough population to warrant global attention. So there's so many options for magazines and content, and you see it now with YouTube. There's so many channels and diversity of content that are making money out there in this field. It's awesome. So yeah, I just kind of
Wait,
I
people
bounced
are
the idea
making
around.
money in this field? How do we?
Don't hey, I hear these things. I have no idea.
Like the mythical
They must be, or they wouldn't be doing it right. I mean, you guys are on. This is episode 39 now. I mean, right? Like, I'm sure you're just rolling, right?
Version
Tower?
2.
we really love banging our heads against hard objects like walls. So
Yes, I've sustained.
We'll continue
Yeah, it's like
doing
everyone
it.
in the gun industry.
yeah.
Some
I
of
don't
those
know. The
walls.
funny thing is, I
may
don't
be-
know.
Sorry, Dan. Some of those walls may be padded, but yes.
Those days are long behind me.
They are.
Yeah.
I
Padded
love
and
the
cement at
canvas
the same
clothing.
time.
What
so
were you saying,
comforting.
Daniel?
Just I don't even remember now, but
Oh, damn it.
no one's getting rich in this end, that's for sure. I can't
You
remember
were
now,
talking about
but,
how there isn't an enthusiast group in Canada that's large enough.
Which-
yeah. So when I worked in the
You
when
would
I worked in the
assume
car
that.
magazine.
Sorry, dude. You would assume that 2.2 million gun owners, or PAL holders, would be a large enough piece of the pie, if you will.
And I think I came into this industry with that attitude, to be totally honest. I thought, there's 2.2 million gunners, 2.2 million potential subscribers out there. It's not true. It's just, it's natural marketing fact. And I think it's something that gun owners and gun groups really need to kind of wrap their heads around, is that if you look at the median age of gun owners in Canada, it's dramatically lower than the median age of gun owners in the USA. So we're talking basically 55 as opposed to 45 in the US, and shifting downwards. They're both shifting downwards. They're shifting downwards more rapidly in the US. So they'll reach a 35-year-old average gun owner a lot faster than we will. We're not really moving, if anything. Except if you consider actually 35 and under female, that aspect, that market group is growing more significantly than anyone else.
For sure, yeah.
But it's a pretty small, stagnant group, and both through my work with Calibre and talking with the industry, but also to moving from Vancouver to Kelowna, I have a different appreciation or perspective of the Canadian gun community now, because it's very fractured. And I don't mean that in a bad way. When people hear fractured, they think like, conventional organizational rifts or FUD versus tactical, whatever. But I mean rifts like the rural urban is a real rift, both outside our community and within. Because if you move out to rural areas, you'll find gun clubs that do not support action shooting sports, do not have steel targets set up, do not support drawing from a holster, do not support shooting while moving, do not support a lot of the action sports that are attracting younger people. It's more, I sight my deer rifle in, I shoot 22s with my kid.
Yeah.
And that atmosphere that you get at the club level is echoed amongst communities at large. So, I moved away from the Lower Mainland, where we have the clubs in the Lower Mainland. The few that we've got are very dedicated towards urban shooters, like Abbotsford Fish and Game, Chilliwack, you name it. They have a lot of matches, a lot of tack rifle, a lot of IPSC, a lot of drills. Abbotsford tactical shooters do a ton. Then you come out to a place like Kelowna or Princeton or some of these other small towns. Not that Kelowna is small, it's 125,000 people in the like Kelowna area is 250,000. It's the second largest metro area in BC. But even still, the local clubs here predominantly supported that hunting ethos, that gun wilderness ethos, fish and game club instead of gun club. And it was reflected in the stores. The stores sold Winchester 30-30s. They sold Remington 700s.
They're
Exact 85s.
conservation driven first, gun club second, right?
I think in Kelowna, there have been entire months where you wouldn't have been able to buy an SKS, an AR-15 off the shelf in this town in the previous years. Obviously now with the AR-15 ban, you can't, but literally to go into a town of 250,000 people and be like, yeah, there's multiple gun stores here, but you can't buy an SKS. Like it's a very,
So
and the thing is that happens everywhere. Like you go into rural Alberta, Saskatchewan, Vancouver, like you get out of the major centers and the community change is quite drastic.
Yeah.
And we've got people, obviously the discussion is largely dominated by people in urban centers because that's where most people are. But I think we're going to have to reach out. That's where, there's 2.2 million gun owners, but, we've engaged a lot of the urban ones already. And by we, I mean the gun community at large. Every organization, podcast like this, the magazine that I make, all of it. We've reached out to those Toronto and Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton gun owners, and we have those folks involved. But unfortunately, they simply aren't the majority of gun owners still.
I'm going to throw out a theory.
We got to reach out to those farm guys.
I'm going to throw out a theory and tell me what you think of it. Do you think that urban gun owners are more likely to be your enthusiast, your three gunners, sport shooters, that sort of stuff? And you were kind of saying that already, and rural more your hunters and all of that sort of stuff. Do you think that rural owners just kind of look at their firearms as, well, this is just a tool. I'm not really a gun enthusiast. I just have this tool because I need it, just like I need any other tool. Whereas urban people, they're probably not doing as much, predator or pest control. They're not using it for, wilderness protection. They're enthusiasts who are doing more sport application. Do you think that that's maybe a thing, or?
I guess it depends on how you classify an enthusiast. And after I answer this question, I'm going to fix my lighting so that my phone camera stops doing that annoying bloop bloop thing. But because that's
question first.
Hell. I think it depends, because I feel like there's basically, I'm saying this now without putting a lot of thought into this theory, but basically two kinds of gun owners in the country, where you've got enthusiasts that have a lot of guns, that shoot seriously, they might shoot IPSC. They're very heavily invested, literally, in the hobby, both time and financially. And I feel like, there's probably more of those in the urban areas, because, I've lived in an urban area. I know that those shops sell more guns to more people and sell more ammunition because people shoot more. When it's a hobby and shooting the gun is the fun, you buy more guns. Kind of like I like riding motorcycles. I own a lot of motorcycles. Like if you're more into the destination, you have one bike. If you're more about hunting or one thing, you have one gun.
Chris likes
so in that
punching
regard,
people in the face, and therefore he opened a gym.
Yeah,
I was like, so he has two hands.
That's literally why.
Well, hey, it's a great excuse to punch people in the face.
That's
that
right.
or a bar. You could do both. Or you do combine the two. Bar gym.
You get in trouble in the bar, though. You can punch people in the face a lot.
But all you have to do is, once they get rowdy in the bar, you kick them over to the gym side. Now they're in a gym and they're sparring. It's all legal.
I think you actually just gave me a good expansion idea.
Revolutionize your business.
I'm trying.
Right there.
I try.
Yep. Pandemic proof.
But I think if you count people by guns by volume, you're going to find a lot of city folk are probably the higher enthusiast. But more to your point about the way the enthusiast feels about the gun law, I'm not sure, because I don't know if it divides up that easily, because I know people in the city that have a ton of guns and are really heavily invested in IPSC or many other shooting sports. I'll just be honest. I know guys that shoot trap every weekend that have $20,000 guns that are most heavily invested in shooting sports. Some of the guys that more than anyone I know. But these are the guys that I have arguments about. I had arguments with the long gun registry back in the day. These are the same guys that go the AR-15 thing. So they're super heavily invested. And I would classify them from a marketing perspective among the most enthusiast, because they are early adopters. They spend a ton of money. It's like their main hobby. But there's also a cohort of gun enthusiasts that are enthusiastic because of the rights and the freedom argument. And personally, that's more of what I lodge into. Like I enjoy shooting. It's a ton of fun. But for me, a lot of the value in firearms is wrapped up in that sense of self-responsibility. I'll be honest, I'm a Western guy. Grew up, my parents, Alberta kid. You grow up in BC and Alberta, you grow up with that attitude of, be self-reliant. That's part of it. And you get a lot of that in the rural areas, where I've bumped into a lot of folks here in Kelowna that don't have AR-15s. They're very uncommon. There's not as many of them here, but there's a lot of folks who go I don't have any of those. But, that's bullshit. They're just guns like my Winchester or my this or like my that. Because on one hand, you've almost got urban people that have a ton of guns, but all the headlines that they're subjected to about other guns that they might feel less secure about are really negative. Whereas in the rural setting, you don't get the same headlines around guns, and the people use guns more frequently, where they seem to be able to more consistently connect the dots in rural communities of, that AR-15 is no different than my Ruger Mini 14, is no different than my buddy's bolt action 223, functionally, for all practical use,
Yeah.
And that might just be because rural folk, there's a different familiarity with firearms as tools, and they kind of view them more simple. Like it's a simpler view that way. It's not wrapped up in there's less politics, I guess, once you get out of the city, and they just become a thing, and it starts to become a bit more like, well, why are they taking them? No one's shooting themselves around here. Like the small towns, when they go, oh, we're going to take all your handguns or your AR-15s away, like, it's Kelowna. The fuck is anyone shooting someone with an AR-15? Right. We have wineries. That's all we've got. Like, we used to have tourists, but COVID got rid of that. So
that's the thing. There's not as many eyes out in the rural areas, and I think I don't know. I think people are a little more aware and tense, and I don't know what all else you'd say in the urban settings, as well as like when anything ever happens, it's always urban focused. Nothing ever happens, according to news or anything like that. Nothing ever happens in rural areas, really.
And when it does, it's more often attributed to the person. Yep. Maybe because there's less people, so the individual that commits the crime is more identifiable to the local community as, oh yeah, Bob, he was always a little bit crazy. Yeah. Or that guy was always the guy that no one wanted to talk to. He was always the angry drunk.
Exactly what everybody said when the Spirit Word shooting happened.
And Mayor Thorpe.
And Mayor Thorpe as well, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Whereas in an urban setting,
the quotes that you saw on all the news agencies, everybody was, well, he's always getting in trouble, or he was always causing
everybody
trouble.
Knew him.
Everybody knew him, yeah.
Whereas
even in Nova Scotia, really.
Well, yeah, with Justin Bork, and then I shouldn't be saying his name, that piece of shit, but but then like the average gangbanger, you don't hear about that in Toronto or Winnipeg or Montreal. He was always troubled and he was known by police and that sort of thing. It's like, no, the gun's the problem in those areas, right?
Yeah.
That's the rhetoric.
I mean, the guy that shot up the Danforth, I was reading the news today, his cousin or something was finally in the court.
Brother,
was it, for 45 or whatever kilograms of carfentanil? And like, that's just coming out now.
Isn't this the same guy that had already been convicted of robbing a store?
No, there's two of them involved. So there was the brother and then the cousin or something. And one of them, the brother and the cousin are linked. And then this other guy that did the shooting was like kind of a third wheel. I mean, a long story short, you got 3 shit pumps doing shit pump things, and somehow it ends up being a gun's fault. And it's like, at what point does 45 kilograms of carfentanil in an apartment from the guy that guaranteed this guy's, when he was out on bail, this was the guarantor for his bail. Like, we don't have a gun problem in Canada. We have a law enforcement problem in Canada. I don't mean that as an attack on police. We have a problem fundamentally enforcing a law, be it money laundering charges here in BC or gang shootings or stabbings, you name it.
Well, it's more of a resources and actual law issue.
It is. And we also have to talk about mental health. You can't have this discussion without bringing up the mental health that's missing. I mean,
for sure.
You can't. We have a huge homeless problem here in BC, and like, your heart goes out to these people that you look at them and you just go like, you just need help, but it's not there,
Yeah. The biggest problem with our mental health system is that it's completely separate from our criminal system. So if somebody who is mentally ill commits a crime, but they have a mental health history, diagnosis, prior medications, prior community treatment orders, that cannot be broached in court. That can't be mentioned in court. That can't be brought into court because of the way that our privacy laws are written. You're breaching that person's privacy to be mentioning their mental health portfolio in the context of their criminal portfolio. And so we end up with so many people with mental health illnesses that just get thrown into the criminal system. And then there's so much catch and release in our criminal system. It's no wonder that we have mentally ill people who are just going through this cycle, spiraling until they do something really horrible.
And I think, exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There is no connection. I remember reading a study that in California, when new inmates were brought into one of the penitentiaries, they just did a basic study. It was like a 5-minute mental health screening. And it was just, when you literally got your prison garb on the way in, they screened you. And if there was any kind of flags for mental health, they brought you back in for an optional 30-minute consult. And of all the people that came in, it actually worked out great because they found out, it was just because they were trying to put minimal dollars into it while trying to find out if they could help these people in prison.
Right.
And over the course of, I think it was a few years, they managed to actually get to a point where if you're in this program for therapy, like you're assessed as a mental health case. And we aren't talking like the people in prisons in California. They're not like, oh, you seem to have a mild anxiety. We're talking like these are people with schizophrenia, antipersonal, ASPD. Like these are serious bad dudes that have done serious shit. It's like a bad shit in their head.
Yeah.
Long story short, the program was a huge success, and they found recidivism, which is term for basically like criminals doing criminal things again. You let them out, they do a crime again. Recidivism plummeted by like 80% because guys were getting out and they were interviewing people that were like, you know, I'm 35 years old. I've stabbed 4 people. I've been dealing drugs for 12 years. I never knew I had schizophrenia. I thought everyone heard voices and everyone else was just better at managing it. And you go like, well, no wonder they're crying. Like,
well, there's 3 points there. Number one, it just goes to show you how low the bar actually is. If with such a joke system like that, you can have that much of an effect. It shows you how low the bar is set. Second thing is I can tell you from watching it with my brother, I've mentioned it on the show before. My brother is schizophrenic. A 5-minute conversation, unless you've got someone who is Charles Manson crazy, who's got a swastika already carved into their forehead, and you can't make one sentence that is connected to reality. There is a whole spectrum of people with mental illnesses who can hold it together for a period of time. A 5-minute conversation is nothing. A 30-minute conversation is nothing. A big part of the problem with my brother, as an example, now, statistically, I know people with schizophrenia are typically lower IQ. My brother, he was IQ tested when he was younger, and he had an IQ of 127. Jeez. That's not a low IQ. That's quite a high IQ, actually. And part of the biggest problem for years this went on before he was ever diagnosed is that he was smarter than the people who were diagnosing him. And he knew what they were trying to do. The only problem was that he thought that they were just out to get him. Yeah. So, you know, the end result is the same. Lie, don't give them what they want, talk circles around them, actually confuse them, and then they just let him go. And this went on for years before he was ever diagnosed. It took him committing an assault on my father, and my father bringing it up in court, saying that I think my son is mentally ill, because, you know, a person can break privacy concerns, but lawyers can't. That led to a community treatment order, and then the assessment of the change in his behavior on the community treatment order is what actually led to his diagnosis. He had to commit assault and be hauled away by the police before he was ever diagnosed.
I won't get into it, but I have similar stories of folks that I've known that the police had to get involved before treatment from the state and provinces, I guess it were, would be administered. And then actually somewhat, I guess, more disturbing, just to say it, my opinion, more disturbing. Later on, that assistance came back to kind of bite them in the ass for employment stuff, because we're super well protected for privacy unless you try and get a job with the government.
For sure.
And then it's, you know, this comes back and it's like, you know, you kind of, you're kicking them on both sides, and it's pretty rough. And I think, you know, the one downside is I think most people in prison, you'd find they got some kind of mental problem. And I mean, it's, you know, they got nothing but time. Why we aren't putting the time in to assess those folks while they're there so that they can be, you know, I know I sound like a bleeding heart liberal, but legit, like, these people go into prison. I know it feels good to punish them because we're all law-abiding people, and there's that little vindictive streak in everyone that loves a little bit of the, like, you fucked someone over and my car was stolen once, so screw you, buddy.
Yeah.
But, like, I'd rather my car wasn't stolen again, and the only way to stop car thieves is to stop making car thieves, and that means stop putting criminals in criminal college and treating them to better criminals. And
so how would you identify, you know, the mental health you know, aspect comparative to this guy was an opportunistic car thief, comparative to a, you know, schizophrenic assault charge, right? Like how do you know,
I'm not a psychologist, so I'll preface all this. I did do a ton of psychology, including forensic psychology university. So I do know a little bit about all that kind of stuff, but only enough to I stayed at a motel or a Holiday Inn basically last night.
Yeah.
My understanding, schizophrenia is an incredibly hard diagnosis for exactly what Chris said. Like they can be low IQ and then they're very easy to diagnose with something, but not necessarily schizophrenia because it can be very hard for them to communicate what's going on.
Yeah.
Other issues like ASPD, oppositional defiance disorder, psychopathy, obviously a big one, tied to all those things. The primary methodology for psychopathy, for example, the diagnostic for psychopathy is a test administered to the person. However, that test is weighted alongside quizzes given to people familiar with the person. And those quizzes are not like, is this person kind of mean? It's like literally hard things. Like, has this person ever hurt an animal? Yes, no. There's no wishy-washy because a lot of these really, a lot of the mental health issues that are expressed in violent means are diagnosed through evidence-based means of, well, okay, they have a substance abuse issue. They may have an issue in their past with sexual assault that's being repressed. And they also have over-aggressive tendencies that have expressed in the way of actual violence. Because, for example, with psychopathy, you can't be diagnosed as a psychopath without actually having hurt someone. It's a component. You have to have hurt something or someone. Otherwise, you're not a psychopath. You're just someone that's very far down the ASPD scale. But you're not a psychopath. So with a lot of these folks that are violent, like you get into different things with the gang crime because that's a different ball game, and that gets into more of the recidivism theory, which it's super interesting. And for gun owners, I hope this is really key. There's 3 things that are key markers for recidivism in criminal justice. And they're really, really simple. It's the certainty of the punishment. So how likely are you to get caught? How quickly the punishment is meted out. So are you going to be sentenced in 3 days or 3 years? And then the severity of the punishment. And it makes a lot of sense because, of course, if any of those scales are tipped inordinately, if you're never going to get caught drinking and driving, well, you'll drive drunk all the time because you'll never get caught. Who cares? Bet they could shoot you on sight, but if someone said, we'll never catch you, well, okay, whatever, right? On the other end of the spectrum, if there's no penalty, you don't care either. If they're going to catch you for sure and they're going to sentence you the next day, but the sentence is a $5 fine, who cares, right? Like it has to be the triumvirate of those things. And I think that's where people can very easily identify where the Canadian justice system is failing. Because, I mean, the certainty of charges for a firearms crime, because when you talk to criminals, you also have to understand this is something most gunners don't think about, which I can say forensic psychology was very useful for. You got to think like a criminal, which means you've probably committed crimes before, which means you probably know that if you get caught with a gun, you're not going to get charged real big time for it. In fact, you might be able to use it to bargain stuff away because there's no mandatory minimums. You can't, it's illegal to do mandatory minimums for them because the R versus Nur case, it's a bargaining chip. So if you've got a kilo of Coke in the glove box, that's a way bigger hit than the Glock.
Yeah, you're better
and
off
by God, if you're driving
guns,
around with thousands and thousands of dollars of drugs, you're probably, and the Glock is the lesser charge. Why wouldn't you have it, right? So that's what they're seeing now. And the other thing that people don't take into account besides those 3 things is literally gang culture. Because that's definitely a thing. If you look into the histories of, for example, biker gangs in Canada, they've obviously had very violent periods, in Quebec especially, that then curtailed to less violent and has given rise to a gang culture that is predominantly non-violent outside the gang world. They're not really injuring a lot or hurting a lot of people outside that world because they know that causes problems. Like in Quebec, when you blow up entire bars, people get angry. Unless you're the FLQ, in which case no one seems to care forever. I don't know how that works, but the only political assassination and kidnapping to have occurred in North America was in Canada. No one talks about that. First. That's a terrible YouTube joke now that I realize it. Anyways, bad jokes aside, I think that's the other side of it, is that we've got newer gangs. We've seen it in BC, newer, younger gangs, younger, literally the members are younger. In some cases, they are linked to ethnic regions that have typically used guns very heavily, such as the Somalian gangs that do exist in Toronto. They come from a culture where firearms are obviously a large part of that life. And, just like if you were to transport a Russian mobster here, he might have different attitudes around guns than a Canadian mobster.
Well, you
that
see it
said,
around,
I don't know any mobsters, so.
True, but but you see it in your region too. Wasn't there a big shooting at a resort where or an assassination for what was it? It wasn't mob, but it was an Italian gang that the
It
guys
was,
hit 'em up
it was just straight mob. It was the Bacon brothers who
That's right.
I think they were affiliated with the UN gang. I was definitely like old enough and watching all the news when it happened. There was like a whole on the local casino here in Kelowna, a Porsche Cayenne with these gang guys rolled up just to party at the casino, and then some other guys ran up.
With
a whole bunch of
Uzis,
handguns,
right?
and I think it was handguns only, but they ran down the street and crazy. It was like the middle of Tourist Central in a tourist town. And then they just scattered.
Yeah.
But I think they caught all those guys, and I think the Bacon brothers are in jail now. Maybe, I don't know. Again, I would have more
pretty sure they
they're
are
in jail if we properly funded our justice system.
Yeah.
Right.
Jail just means that you don't have to pay for your own food while you run your gang.
Yep.
Pretty much. And you'll get tips on how to run it better next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was the Bacon brothers, and it was in Abbotsford, wasn't it?
Oh, that's the Surrey 6 one? There's been
Something
a lot.
like that.
Let's just
Yeah.
say that.
There's been a few.
So many shootings.
But yeah, but then you go to centers like Winnipeg, and it's Latin Kings versus the Asians, or you come to Regina, and it's the indigenous gangs, and it's so varied, and there's you can't paint them all with the same brush. There's so many different variables involved here, but yet guns seem to be the underlying factor that get blamed all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you're a normal, I shouldn't say normal, we're all normal. If you're non-gun owner, I think it's pretty, to be honest, to be blunt, it's rational. It makes sense to you to blame the gun.
Yeah.
Because when you look across all of these markets and all these different groups, you go, okay, well, you got Latin Kings, Somalians, Hells Angels, Banditos, all these different groups. Guns are the common factor. So you go, well, if you put in literally no thought, it seems to make sense.
Yeah, I was just
if your thought process is too shallow to skip a stone across.
Thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which most voters aren't. We have entered an age of incredibly low information voters. Like this has been going on for 10 years now.
Oh yeah, that's obvious in the last 2 elections. Fuck.
Yeah, it's feels over reals. It's how people feel about stuff rather than what is the reality that they're going to be confronted with. I think it's, we see these things where, I'll be blunt, however people feel about concealed carry, there's lots of debate around it. It's just, you see these things, for example, that lady in the UK that got stabbed by a police officer, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And there was a massive protest about it because, women's safety is obviously key. She was just walking home and got stabbed, murdered, obviously. And at the protest, the police kind of like cracked down on all these women, like laying flowers at a vigil. It was brutal. And there's all this discussion that goes on around violence in society. And there's all these things of, I see some tweets from people saying, well, you can carry bear spray, but you can't carry it for people. So just tell the police that it's for a dog. And then, all these other things. But these are all the same people that said like, oh, no one should ever have to carry a gun. And now they're talking about like, I shouldn't have to stick my keys between my fingers when I walk to my car. And I kind of can't help but think, and I know it's totally that little vindictive streak everyone has, but I can't help but go, if you had a gun in your purse, you wouldn't need the key. You'd probably feel a little bit safer walking to your car.
Or the bear spray.
But it's one of those things where I got to say, like, I'm a big rights guy, but people have pushed that rights argument as far as they can without ever picking up the responsibility stick. Like, it's one thing to say we should have the right to carry a gun, but by God, be responsible.
That's I've said that a lot. So that, like, I don't know that we're how do I say, mature enough in this country to ever have carry rights, because it's not like the U.S. where they've had it for forever, and it's for at least several generations, and they're kind of used to it for the most part, right? Yeah. But here, where we've never had it, and then all of a sudden, if we
did
get
have it, but that was back before I was born, before you were born, right, Dan?
That was back when Rooster was still in high school.
Yeah.
So my first,
sometime around the 30s or 40s.
Right. Yeah.
My first actual interface with guns, I wasn't brought up in a gun household. My family hates guns. They're Vancouver people. And that's fine. But I was literally in forensic psychology. The options for our thesis papers at the end of a massive year-long course were a whole bunch of things about domestic assault, which seemed really unpleasant to do research into, and a discussion of gun control in Canada and how it's impacted violent crime rates versus the gun control regime in the USA. And the craziest part, I went into it the exact same idea of like, they've had concealed carry forever, you name it. They've only had it since the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Concealed carry in the United States is literally, it owes its creation to the cocaine wars in Florida in the 80s, where literally a sheriff said we could no longer protect the citizenship. And the coolest part about that, because that's all aside, the coolest part about that is that the FBI has literally compiled statistics on universal crime reporting in every state on computerized record that has passed concealed carry. So you can actually pinpoint certain points in time where you can control for socioeconomic factors, but look at two populations like North and South Dakota. Because at one point, I believe it was North Dakota was a shall issue and South Dakota was a may issue. And I might have that reversed.
No, you're right.
But,
yeah.
So in those interim periods there where they were disproportionately giving out carry licenses, the shall issue state's violent crime rate dropped twice as fast as the opposing state. Yeah. But they have largely the same demographics: age, income, education levels, race, you name it. So you could just kind of look and go, well, you got two groups of people that are basically the same. They live in the same conditions, and this group got guns, and wow, like, could the criminals stop assaulting people? And I think it's not necessarily that Canadians need to mature to get them, because I drive around Canadians every day and trust them not to kill me. I think what it will take is probably that's a good.
Thank you, Doug.
Yep. I think it's going to take the understanding
on this podcast to verify that he's older than me.
So for the listeners, Doug Rodenbush is saying, I'm old enough to remember when we were restricted to having only one sharp edge on our rock.
It's a serious issue.
Yeah. Sorry. Continue, Daniel. Finish your thought.
I think people just need to wrap their heads around, and I'm not saying that concealed carry is anywhere close to happening in Canada. I'm not one guy. It's a parliamentary question that has to go to the nation. But I think it's something where when I talk to Canadians, I think we're very, 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 very far away, because it seems to be the understanding of Americans carry guns to shoot people instead of carrying guns to protect themselves. And there is a distinction in that you can protect yourself by displaying, brandishing, or threatening someone with a firearm, where if someone is saying, I'm going to mug you, you can turn around and say, I've got a Glock. And then they go, never mind. And I mean, as the CDC study found, there's millions of those uses here.
I was going to say, don't tell them you got a 1911.
Well, then they'll just be really worried about the extra 2 world wars hole.
I think, Kurt was talking about it earlier. I mean, we don't acknowledge enough, I think, that personal freedom and personal responsibility are inextricably linked, that you can't separate the two. And we love talking about our freedoms, especially when we think that we don't have them. But we almost never anymore talk about personal responsibility in this country.
You're so
whether
right.
and not just in regards to firearms. We've been abdicating our personal responsibilities for an extremely long time in many, many different fields. And in a lot of ways, it's gotten so bad that memes and jokes about being an adult, adulting, is just commonplace. I'm so over adulting today. What the fuck are you talking about? You're 37.
Right. Yeah.
I will say this though on that. I had a discussion earlier today about the same topic, and as an elder millennial, elder, because apparently I am one. I've been informed.
How old are you?
35.
30.
Yeah, unfortunately you are one. Yeah.
I am the oldest of the millennials, but I am old enough to have grown up and played for most of it. I got my first phone at like 18, so I'm pre-internet, pre-computer games. So I still got to go out and do stuff. My mom didn't know where I was, which is the crucial part of growing up pre-internet.
100%.
Yeah. But I think you got to watch out, because young folks, they're disenfranchised for a reason. And I think that they don't see themselves as adults, and we're totally getting off the tangent of gun topics, but they don't see themselves as adults because fundamentally, I actually think Canada's kind of taken away their chance to be an adult. Because if you're a 30-year-old or you're a 32-year-old, right? The normal 30-year-old should be, and I should take all this back, it's very judgmental. In the past, social norms have been such that a 30-year-old should be aiming for potentially their first kid. They're in their first home, probably have been there for a few years, and they're probably working towards a mid-level management career position, right?
Wow,
the boomers won't quit.
You described my life in a nutshell right there.
Because it's my life too. Why do you think I started my own company? The boomers won't quit their jobs, so there's no mid-level jobs to move into. You can't afford a house because it's $1.5 million to get a shitbird condo that you could barely turn around in. Never mind trying to have a family. Like, you probably can't even do the deed in the condo that you can afford. Never mind raise a kid in it.
God, this guy is a crystal ball into my life.
But it's like, are we surprised that these people are acting less mature? Because I've always been told, if you want someone to act responsible, give them responsibility. People will live up to the standards you let them live up to. But this constant house prices going up. I was right there, man. Like, we looked for houses for 4 years, and it's tough. It's really hard to say I'm an adult person who can do my shit when you feel homeless.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh man, I hope my landlord doesn't raise my rent by more than I can afford next month, because holy shit, this house has gone up.
I'll tell you, Daniel, you're not wrong about that. I'm not a millennial. Neither is my wife. We were living in a home that we owned, but was extremely old, that she had inherited from her grandmother, and we wanted to move into a home that was our home, and built after World War II. Because this one was built before World War II. And we still had to get assistance from my in-laws in order to secure a mortgage on a house that was built after the 1930s. Yeah. So I think on that point, you're not wrong.
Yeah, and it's like, I've talked to my parents are obviously of the older generation that was during the recession in the 80s when they were dealing with the high interest rates. And it's been tricky to talk to folks that were in that era, because they go, well, we were paying 20% interest. And you kind of go hey, you're paying 20% interest on $100% or $100,000 principal that you could choose to pay or not, because the interest is pay it fast. And at a time when most people were buying houses worth 3 to 5 times their annual income versus I have friends who have a combined income of $100,000 in their family, and they're purchasing $1.4 million homes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a 15-year if you dedicate everything, and people don't get that, and I think it's tough. It's very tough for young folks out there, and it's like relating to the other point about ineptitude and people not taking responsibility. The government, writ large, liberal, conservative, I don't care what banner you're under, you're not doing your job right now to look after the people who live in this country, because there's an entire generation that's floundering. They're in their 30s. They're trying to figure out where they go, and I don't blame them.
So what's the fix then? Like, how do we get these personal rights and personal freedoms back?
Whenever someone writes me a check for whatever Justin Trudeau gets paid, I'll have an answer to that question. But
truthfully, I think we, in some ways, we have to earn it. But that doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you don't just tell people, okay, well, we're responsible. That's a generational thing. I think it's been a generational thing sliding to where we are, and I think it'll be a generational thing going back.
But does that start at the top down or from the bottom up? Like, does it start at government?
I think it 100% starts at the top down. I think it 100% starts with I mean, not to put myself but I'm not any better than anyone else, but I am lucky enough to be in a position where people give me money and then throw their children at me and say, teach my kid how to be an adult. In no short way, that is a major part of my job. And quite honestly, it's a part of why I chose the job that I chose, so that I can have that impact. I think that my personal philosophy, everybody, the whole point of life, the answer to life is not 42. The answer to life is to improve continually. I think that is the point of existence, is to continue to improve. Technologically, nobody can question whether we've been doing that. Socially, there's a very hard argument to make that we have been doing that, and so I think it's incumbent on every. I don't think we have either. That's what I mean. I think it's a hard argument to make that we have been, because I don't think we have.
The internet,
and I think it's incumbent on everybody.
The worst thing to happen to mankind. I'm convinced.
I think so. Yeah. I think, and I mean, the way it's coming out politically is brutal. because political teams are trying to game the algorithm by using
and
that,
they're doing it.
the manner in which. Well, yeah, the way the algorithm just
successfully.
torques stuff that you're emotionally tied to, it's just making everyone love and hate stuff. So they're just, it's no coincidence that partisanship has increased with social media.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like,
well, but what I think, me and Kurt, I was sitting right where Kurt's sitting right there yesterday, and we had this discussion. I said, Kurt, you know, we don't need partisanship. We need a leader to stand up and tell people and have them believe that, you know, fuck your partisan bullshit. Fuck your left versus right.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do to get better as a people, to get better as a country. Let's work together and move forward. Instead of this, you know, well, he's conservative, fuck this guy, and he's liberal, fuck this guy, you know, and
yeah. There's been so long now that we've been able to sit behind the safety of a keyboard and yap at one another without any recourse whatsoever. You expect now those people are going to come together somehow. It's just not going to happen.
Now there is recourse now, and I think that's part of it. I think it's completely against human nature for there not to be recourse. The recourse used to be you were saying something to somebody's face, and if you were a dick, they were going to punch you in the face.
Slapped. Yeah.
And I think that as social media and the internet is evolving, recourse is coming back into the equation. The problem is that it is a passive aggressive cancel culture that is replacing a punch in the mouth.
Oh, I suppose. Jesus, that's so fucking foreign to me. I like your former point much better.
You like the punch in the mouth?
Well, you know what? To me, to a guy like me, it's clear why people display such bad behavior. Is because there is no consequence.
There's no
if they
solid
had
deterrent.
gotten smacked in the mouth a couple of times, and this is including the millennials who yap at the goddamn boomers. Okay, boomer. Well, your fucking parent is a boomer.
I literally just said that to Doug in the chat.
Is that right?
But like when you go to the bar,
asshole.
well, yeah, but like when you go to the bar and you get drunk and you start spracking off to somebody, there was always that risk when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, where you're going to say something wrong to the wrong guy and or gal, and they're going to pop you square in the mouth. And
I think
you're gonna
that
learn
still
your lesson.
exists. The problem is, at least for the last 12 months, most people aren't going to the bar anymore.
Well, this is true.
I mean, you got to understand.
This is adding to that.
Yeah, none of us are particularly old. I mean, we talk about Kurt, but even you're not that. You're not even 50 yet. I mean, give it another 3 months.
Not even, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, the reality is that we've got 2 millennials and 2 Gen X. None of us are that old, right?
Yeah.
But fuck yeah, I've talked about that now. I completely forgot the fucking point of saying that. But what I was trying to say was, all 4 of us grew up in the era where we didn't really have Tinder or I don't know, whatever is Grinder. We couldn't swipe right, man. We had to go to the bar.
Yeah, the pub, nightclub,
we dated our coworkers.
Yeah,
right?
that was my Tinder. Going to the
You
bar
don't have
and
to do that.
Yeah.
I had to hit
should we bring
chicks
this
over
back
the
to
head with
guns?
a
'Cause
bat.
I don't know what world problem.
Drag them back to the cave.
That's right.
You had your club. Let's bring this back to guns.
Guns, yes.
I think that we got a little off the.
Took a 45-minute divergence.
It's all
That's
good
okay.
times, though.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
pew-pews.
guns, yes, pew-pews. So
Hey, let's talk about the CSSA.
Yeah, how did you get tied up with those guys?
Pure coincidence, actually. I'd started the magazine up on my own, and I think I was into it for a couple of years. And I just got a call kind of out of the blue from, I think it was Mike Deinhoven, actually, from CSSA, saying, do you want to come out to Toronto and meet with us about buying some subscriptions from you? And obviously, just kind of clued in. And I hadn't been trying to sell them or sell magazine subscriptions to organizations whatsoever. At the time, our entire distribution model was going straight to retailers, the gun retailers at the time. So I flew out to Toronto and I met with Tony Bernardo and Mike and hashed it out and basically got to a point where they buy a whole ton of subscriptions for their members from us. And then Tony writes a column inside.
That's how I found out about you guys. I bought a membership the year right after you signed that deal. And I'm like, oh, what's this? This is cool. And this is exactly what I was looking for. And yeah, and I've been a member ever since. So
I'm not going to lie, that was actually my introduction to Calibre Magazine too. Is that a CSSA membership came with my
Saskatoon Rifle and Revolver
Saskatoon
Club.
Wildlife Federation membership.
Oh yeah, former president of that is now the CFO, is he not?
That's correct. He is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Robert Freeberg.
Rob Freeberg. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And now I actually have 2 subscriptions to Calibre Magazine. You send my household 2 magazines every month because my wife has a subscription and I have a subscription.
Oh, then isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Do you read it together as well on the deck?
No.
Oh, that's too bad. I think you're really missing out on an opportunity there. You have like a book club.
A book club. I read it twice and she just doesn't read
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fair point.
My wife got a membership in solidarity more than in gun interest.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been doing that, I guess, for 7 years. And in the 7 years we've been doing it, I crunched the numbers actually just last week, and the CSSA membership has grown by 50% in that time.
Wow.
Yeah, they've done very, very well. So,
Yeah.
And it's been fun. It's been nice. It's a bit weird because obviously the CSSA's roots being the Ontario Handgun Association, that's what they grew out of, which I didn't know. But yeah, so I'm super well known in Ontario. But BC being historically FA territory, it's, I guess people know me in BC because I do distribute a ton to the retailers. Like I got a haircut 2 weeks ago, and it just kind of hits in weird spots where a guy's like, what do you do for work? And I'm like, oh, magazine publishing. And then they ask the question where, and you're always doing the judgment, like, do I tell you I just own a gun magazine, or do I just say it's an outdoor sports magazine? Do I want to have this conversation?
Just do it. Yeah.
I did, and then I immediately thought, this guy's cutting my hair, and he just started, so this could go badly.
It'll grow back.
You guys be the judge. But I said, yeah, Calibre Magazine. He's like, oh, I read that all the time, and it still blows me away because
Nice.
in my head, the imposter syndrome is still huge, and I just think I just toil away in my basement and make this zine, and maybe a dozen people in the country maybe read it and like it, and that's cool. But here I go. So it's a bit of a trip to hear people like you guys say, yeah, I got it here and there, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and when your distribution network before the CSSA was gun retailers, I first picked up an issue at TNT Gunworks in Regina because right on the gun counter, there's a whole stack of them just lined up right there, and it's like, oh, that's cool. It says Canadian Fire Magazine. That's awesome. And you guys, and being that you're, not niched into one platform, like you're not just tactical, you're not just reloading, you're hunting, you're outdoors, you're mill serps, your ARs, you're all over the place. I think that kind of opens you up to a lot of different markets that we're sorely lacking in this country. And props, man, that's good.
Well, thank you. And I wish that we could do more, just so people know, inside baseball stuff, that publication, it caps out around 64 pages typically. We'll run a 56 or a 64 page layout depending on the season. If anyone's wondering why we don't go bigger than 64, it's typically because 64 pages is 198 grams. And Canada Post Publication mail kicks in a weight surcharge of 200 grams. And because with the CSSA, we try and do it as affordably as we can for them. It's almost, it is a donation at this point, but we try and keep it low. So I'm not really into paying for a ton more postage. But we're at 64 for that. And it's nice to kind of fill it up. And I'm hoping we can get bigger this year. But, I try and keep, the gun retailers and stuff and the CSSA and those folks in mind. And it gets tricky because I love the gun retailers, and I never, they'll always be the core of the advertisers in the magazine is the retailers and the distributors. Within the magazine industry, there's a term called CPM, which is cost per mille, which is the cost per 1,000 impressions for advertising speak. Calibre is very low on the CPM. In terms of what our advertising rates are, we're literally about 20% of our nearest competitor, which would probably be Canada Outdoors, which is a great publication. If anyone's thinking about advertising them and you want to spend the money, go for it. Far from me to denigrate a compatriot, but we're super cheap because I want to keep those guys in the magazine. I want to make sure that readers out there are always flipping past. I don't want to send out a magazine that's Shimano fishing reels in the inside front cover, and then Yamaha outboards, and then Ford pickup trucks. Like, I don't mind a Ford pickup to Ford. If you're listening, please call me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind. We can talk. A Raptor. We can work something out. A new Bronco. Land
Don't go to
Rover.
Jeep.
I'll give you
They
even better
hired
deal.
Bruce Springsteen.
I'd be a Land Rover guy. I could. Is the flag? I don't know if the flag is open. I have a flag right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a few of those. Yeah, that'd be my thing. But
With the
I
samurai
want
in
to
the
keep
back.
it. Oh, that's actually my wife's truck. It's pre-Samurai. It's the Suzuki pre-Samurai.
Oh, no.
This is
looks-
pre-samurai.
I don't know how to. There we go. Can I get it away?
Yeah.
There you go.
nice.
Looks like a little Land Cruiser. Yep. So, I always want to keep those guys in the magazine, so we're always going to kind of keep it exactly as it is. We might launch a second product in a few years that might be a bit different, but it'll still be gun centric. And personally, my interest, I can't pin my gun interest down to a single category. I like tactical rifles. I like service pistols. I like history. I like weird guns that just operate in strange ways, like, Laugo aliens and stuff. Yeah. It was like cars. Like, I never understood when I go to car shows and guys like, I'm a Ford guy. Like, how? Why? I don't know. It's kind of like guys are like, I'm a blonde guy. You gonna restrict yourself to just that one kind? Because there's a lot out there, and
Isn't
they're
that what
pretty
marriage
cool.
is?
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, I just had a thought that I'm going to share with you, and if you decide to do it, I'll take, I don't know, 25%. You know what Canada really needs? Canada really needs its very own Ian McCallum in print form.
Gun Jesus.
And you've already got the facial hair.
Interestingly, I actually was trading some emails with Mr. McCollum's company. We contributed photos to their latest book. If you buy their book on the Thornycraft designs, all the British bullpups. I was lucky enough to go to Toronto and photograph the #1 serial number EM2 prototype that was made by Canadian Arsenals.
Very cool.
So for the book, they reached out, and I met Ian down at SHOT and met him a few times. Great guy. I would never deign to
think of this.
No one can replace Ian. Is the core thing.
Yeah, I believe that.
But he's a great guy, and I think he's certainly been an inspiration, because I think there's not a mean bone in that man's body. Like I could say he's inspiring because he's got millions of followers and all that. Yeah, he's all that. But I got to say, the thing is, having met the guy, he is exactly as nice as you think he is, if not nicer. Like, it's just in an industry that can be a bit cutthroat at times, man. That man is a gem.
A bit cutthroat.
And he does great content.
He does great, and like you said, no bias. Like, you'll dump a Keltec RDB in a wheelbarrow full of mud and test it, and then go on for 3 hours about Lebel rifles,
or the show
all
shot,
the history, and
anything French. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he hasn't. I won't say he's the entire reason I just bought a Mandarin MR73, but the Francophile part, I couldn't say no. It arrived for testing, and I was like, it's really nice.
I will say that I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't disappointed that we cannot buy WWSD 2020 rifles up here.
That would be nice.
It'd be really nice. I really like that one-piece polymer receiver buttstock that they seem to have just perfected. Like, it just looks really, really interesting to me. But alas, I'm going to have to move to Montana if I want one of those, I guess.
Or just make do with Norinco's forever.
Yeah.
How can you say that? Let's keep a straight face.
I didn't. Are you seeing this? I never keep a straight face.
That's true.
So, what's the next step for the magazine?
2021 is going to see a whole lot of video content and podcasts. I'm probably going to do some Twitch stuff coming up this week, because I'm also big into video games, and I can think of nothing better than to be like, hey, I'm going to write off some video game time while chatting with my homies.
You know, you might appreciate my new. I've been
Your
partaking in tobacco products throughout the show, and friend of the show Chad, he actually, now this is not how it is, but the cat it's an ashtray, okay, but it's
Nice.
it's a mini nuke from Fallout, and
Nice.
the cap, like, I can dump it out and then screw it back on because the top of it's threaded, so I can screw it back on and it sits like
And
a
it becomes
mini
the
nuke
nuke?
on my So cool. Anyway, shout out to Chad.
I love video games, man. Like, I've been playing video games since video games were invented, and I'll play video games until the day I die, because that's
I'm
just
the
the way she
same way.
goes. I mean,
I'm the same
it's been
I'm
great.
asking
I
what
moved
you're
4 hours
playing
away
right
from my
now,
friends.
Is this where I have my nap?
Yeah, that's
old
where
guy
Rich
nap.
has his nap. Yeah. Oh, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say I'd ask you what you're playing right now, but we've already veered off of guns for 2/3 of the whole show, so maybe we should keep it on topic for the rest of the show.
So yeah, back on guns. What's new? Okay, so big news. Big news internally, which I guess isn't stuff anyone knows, but I'm trying to shine more of a light so people know. I used to do a ton of the photography. Don't have a Twitch channel yet, but I will post it as soon as I can, Doug. I used to do a ton of photography because that's my favorite thing. That was kind of my shindig with cars, a lot of photography. Last issue was the first one where I didn't shoot the majority of the photography. I had pros do it. I didn't. I'm slowly easing out of more of the reviews. So we're hiring more reviewers and
Well,
photographers.
good for you guys.
Doing more video content. Doing our own podcast this year, the Twitch channel. Yeah, just trying to branch into additional content streams. I think obviously COVID's made everyone confront that reality that I simply don't think that I should continue to just sit in my office and make a magazine. I think I'm more effective doing stuff like this as well as managing the magazine. So
Fantastic.
No kidding.
Can't argue with
anyone's got
diversity,
ideas for how I can make more money with my magazine, again, call me.
right? I actually do, but it
Go on.
involves the other reason we were talking about, why you have a
Sleeves.
blank white piece of paper
Right.
sleeve on it.
I was gonna
So
say,
I'm not sure it's going to actually work out.
I think I know where you're
Kurt is
going.
available as a model, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. For the older,
Are you
the older, more distinguished ladies.
It's a market. I
is
have
a
the
market.
numbers. It's a solid double-digit market in
Right.
Canada.
Double digit. Fuck
The
that.
13 to 14 people, they'll really enjoy it. So it's something I'll take under advisement. Thank you.
You may have to send each issue with a complimentary pair of reading glasses, though.
Yes. I think that's
The
a given.
age demographic.
That is a given.
I was thinking
man.
Gravol. I was just thinking throw a little Gravol tablet in there.
or just a
Problem solved.
Werther's original.
Oh, that's good.
Gravol won't actually work because that's for nausea, not revulsion.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do that. Oh,
Hey.
that's cold.
that's one.
Sorry. Oh, did I cross the line there?
Everybody gets one.
Congratulations.
The reading glasses and the Werthers is all fun and games.
Absolutely.
But
Revulsion
Gravel's
is
off
all right. Draw the line.
You son
Well,
of a
I want to
mother,
ask you a
let's go.
question, Daniel, about how you come upon the content for the magazine. Like, are you just like always just kind of swimming for things, and just kind of grabbing what catches your eye, or do you have a method?
Well, I mean, some could say swimming. I feel like scrambling would probably be a better definition.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been really hard. Actually, last year's been way more difficult. Previous years with a little bit more legislative stability, we've been able to build editorial calendars where, so typically what we would do is we would say the next issue is going to be a reloading issue, and we'd say like that's the theme. I never want to make a magazine that like only appeals to one group, so I would never just be like this whole issue is reloading. So it'll be like we'll have some reloading presses, maybe like 3 features on reloading, and then 2 or 3 on additional stuff, right? This year, though, ever since like May, I guess probably actually since COVID, because that made things a bit weird. Then obviously since May 1st, every issue, I mean, the latest issue, we had an entire review ready to go, page 4 photograph, the whole 9 yards. And then we were going to print the day after the C21 announcement. And it was, I can't send a magazine to print the day after C21's announced without at least addressing it somewhat in print. It's a huge opportunity. So
Right.
that's a scramble where I ended up, I think I was up until 4 a.m. writing that article and then having my proofreader proofread and edit it the next day. And It's been a bit of a nightmare that way. It's really hard to schedule stuff when you're kind of constantly, and too, like certain points of, well, let's review this latest M14 clone. Well, that's fucked now. So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
it's been a lot of shadow boxing is how I'd probably define it this year. But for 2021, we're trying to move forward and just kind of have like float. We're going to have probably 3 to 5 pages float every issue we'll just plug content into as needed or as we can if something happens. But we're going to always have that space available to talk about what's changing because it's apparently something we need. I really wish we didn't, but hashtag reality.
Yeah. Hashtag reality. Do you ever have people coming to you? Like, do you have businesses coming to you? Hey, we've got a new rifle coming out, new this, new that. Could you feature us, sort of thing, or are you usually reaching out to people?
I don't reach out to anyone. Very rarely will I say like, do you have anything? It's just not. I don't like to cross streams between editorial and advertising. So the way it works is I'll have people review stuff. So let's say, for example, you've got Beretta 92X, right? Which we actually have in for testing right now. That'll go to a guy who has no idea if Stoeger runs ads or not, and he'll just review the gun. He'll write the review. He'll send it to me. I don't heavily edit it. I edit for grammatical errors. I don't change tone or anything like that.
Right.
So we divorce things that way, and I'm not really comfortable calling people up too much and saying like, "Hey, do you have something that we can feature for you?" Because that starts to feel a bit like I'm aware of the fact that I've only got 56 or 64 pages every 2 months to send to tens of thousands of gun owners that, based on the readership surveys, 200,000 people read every 2 months. I don't want to waste their time with marketing shit, for lack of a better term. I mean, if Stoeger wants to, if a company wants to push their product in the magazine and they really want to do that on their time scale, they're welcome to buy an ad. But if they want to have their stuff reviewed, which plenty of people do, I'm happy to feature it. The degree to which we'll feature it. So if people want to know if I'm looking at what to feature in the magazine, if it's Canadian made, it's pretty much a lock because I like supporting Canadian companies, especially Canadian manufacturing. So if you build it here in Canada and you tell me that you build it here in Canada, I'll say, yeah, we'll fit this in the magazine at some point, pretty much a guarantee. If it's something new and notable, obviously specifically to the Canadian market, that's obviously more interesting. I shy away from some of the stuff where it's like, hey, do you want to test the latest whiz bang Remington? Like Guns and Ammo had it 8 months ago. I'm sure everyone that has an interest in buying that gun has already formed an opinion. There's already content on the website. It's available for them. Right. So we really excel in it. It feeds my love of weird shit to have things like the weirdo. I think, and this is where I love the Canadian market, and I hope Canadian, if you're listening to this, Canadian gun owners appreciate the strange market we get to enjoy. Because although I'm sure we would all love the U.S. laws of short-barreled pistols and all that fun stuff and hunting with ARs, I would love that. We don't have that, so at least appreciate the fact that we don't have to have guns only made here. So we get all these weird things like Israeli Tavors and Laugo aliens before the U.S. does. And there's a lot of weird stuff there. It's super fun to play with. Like that, I had a Laugo alien in my hand before Larry Vickers did. By pure fluke of we live in a less restrictive society for importation. Type 81. I've reviewed a Type 81. Larry Vickers has never reviewed a Type. Right. Ian McCollum. He'd love a Type 81. It probably has one, but so I really focus on that more of the like, what's a unique thing that I can bring to people that's just generally relevant. Is this something that's relevant because of the way you can use it in Canada? Like, I think a Kel-Tec Sub 2000 is a better gun in Canada than it is in the US. Because in the US, if you want to carry a gun around for protection, like and I'll preface this for any law enforcement officers and any lawyers listening, I drive a lot of Forest Service roads. So I carry a gun in my truck when I drive Forest Service roads because I live in an area with cougars and bears and I go out and do photo shoots in the woods.
Yep.
Okay. And I like to bring food with me because I'm a normal human being that eats food. Us in the States, I would just carry a 10 millimeter Glock. Right. That'd be it. I'm chest rig, Mars bar, I'm done. In reality, in Canada, you can't do that. So a sub 2K is pretty close, right? Like you put 10 rounds of 9mm in that, it's got muzzle energy of a 357 mag. You got plus B rounds in there. That's a decent carbine. So I'll put that in the truck. It takes up no space. It fits in my door pocket quite nicely, folded in half. And when I go out to do my photo shoots, I just carry it with me. It's no big deal. I'm told, walk through the woods. Feel okay. I'm in black bear territory for those that are wondering as well. Not black bears or browns or grizzlies, but it's mostly a scaring thing. It's also too a little bit of the like you come across the roadkill. You only have to do that once before you feel like there's probably a better way than whatever you have handy in your truck.
Yeah.
So it changes the way you look at guns. Because a sub 2000 in America, they look at it and go, well, folding pistol caliber carbine, I can just carry a pistol. What is the use of this gun? For Canadians, it's a whole different ballgame, right? So that's where we would go. That's a very popular gun. It's been reviewed a million times in the States. But we'll review it too, because it's a different perspective. But Remington 700, Remington 870, Savage 110, Glock 17, Gen whatever the fuck you want to call it.
11d6.
You know, why would I review that? It's just kind of...
Yeah.
Someone else will have a more salient impression of Glock than me. Like, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know.
Well,
So-
and Grantham on YouTube just did sent out a review of a M14 project that he built based on the Black Hawk Down movie with the Aimpoint Comp M4.
Yep.
It wasn't a Comp M4. It was the Aimpoint Prism sight that they got and, you know, dolled it up. And that
You went
was
full
fucking
shoe guard?
cool. He did. Yes, he did. All right.
Yeah, I love Black Hawk Down. I also saw the video because I love Grantham. And I love the M14, so I was all up in that because the
That was
M14
great.
Black Hawk Down that'd be nice.
You bet.
I wish I had an M14.
Me too.
I like those.
Yeah, I sure would like to own one. If only they weren't prohib, that'd be cool.
Exactly.
You know, it's
It'd
funny.
be cooler if you did.
I was considering one for hunting shortly before the May 1st. Yeah. Yeah. So I
It's my favorite
legitimately
rifle.
missed the boat.
It is.
It is my very favorite rifle. I don't know why. I know practically, if you were to ask me technically the best gun in the world, I'd say the AR-15. Technically, I think it is.
Yep.
But
I
for my
agree.
favorite gun to shoot,
I think it's the M2.
I will. Really?
The mod juice.
Let's explore that. Why is the M2? And I'm assuming you're talking the 50, not the grease gun.
Yeah.
Oh no, you know what? Wow, wait, maybe now I'm talking about the grease gun.
Which would you? Let's go. Which would you rather have?
No, I'm
The
totally
M2 grease
talking
gun,
about
the M2
mod
deuce.
Here's what I want. Here's my ideal, you know, just your typical, nothing crazy, just, you know, for wilderness protection out in the woods. It's a 2021 Ford Bronco with dual mod deuces mounted on the top. They're like,
nothing.
You want-
Also, you know, no, I got a one up there.
Like, are you just trying to defend yourself from the wilderness? Like at large?
Literally,
in
just as a
general.
notion?
I'm worried.
Like,
I'm worried about a
wilderness is a concept.
chameleon-like camouflaged alien that is going to be hunting me in the woods. That's what I'm worried about.
Predator.
You
You're worried about Predator.
Yeah.
Yes, and I can't own a minigun, so I want an M2.
Did the minigun
Yeah.
help them?
Exactly.
Well, that's true. He did have his chest blown out.
What you want is a Bronco with Arnold
Spoiler alert.
Schwarzenegger strapped to the hood. Not Arnold Schwarzenegger today. You want Arnold Schwarzenegger of what, 1991?
1984. Was
it 84? Was
it was
What?
87. Thank you very
87?
much.
Okay.
And
Oh, 87
it
post Top Gun.
Schwarzenegger.
was
Which is
post
key.
Top
Oh my
Gun.
God.
Because there's pre and post Top Gun.
Jens gets me. Jens understands. It's for the Gophers.
Yeah.
So how about here's the question. So we're getting into random questions now. I can interview you guys because whatever. Who
It's,
cares?
it's the end of the show. Fuck it. Let's do it.
What's your maybe each of you can answer. I'd be curious to hear what you guys thought. What do you think if you were to describe the gun? What gun defines Canadian gun ownership?
Oh,
Writ large, not your ownership, not how you want it to be. The
Historically or
reality
now?
of Canadian gun ownership.
Historically
right
or
now.
now?
What
Right
gun?
now.
Lee
Right.
Enfield, 303 Brit.
I would have said historically the Enfield.
Yeah.
So why do you guys
No.
say Enfield?
I don't.
Well, hang on, let's see
They do.
why Enfield first.
Because that's the gun that everybody's grandfather used hunting.
Exactly.
Like when we were kids, that's.
But is that not your grandfather's gun? Is that still today's gun? Like if you talk to today's, if you get
Well, it was my
the 2.2
grandfather's
million of us in one
My
room,
grandfather literally picked his up in Halifax on the way back from the war. So it was my grandfather's gun.
Okay. Can I caveat that point? Today, we're talking about today, not what we inherited from our grandparents.
Yeah, no, you're right.
that
Yeah,
we-
today the
that we
answer has to
barely
change.
use. And I would say that answer is the preeminent Simonov SKS.
Oh,
Oh, really? That's so depressing.
Yep.
You know what?
It is, but everyone and their dog may or may not have one. And they're readily available now. They're selling for $4.99, but I remember a time where you can get them for $199 with 250 rounds of surplus ammo, and guys would buy them by the crate. And they're everywhere. They're everywhere, and every range that I've ever been to has a policy about steel case surplus ammo for
of
the
SKS.
SKS.
Yeah. You're not wrong about that, but that
Yeah.
makes me sad. That makes Chris sad.
Yeah.
What do you
I
think
feel
of
like
it,
it's
then?
somewhere. I think it's somewhere between the SKS and a Winchester 3030. And this is where it gets interesting because I
30-30.
wonder. Well, this is where I love having this
going
conversation
back
because
a
you
bit,
guys are
though.
not in BC.
True.
Well,
yeah.
Game. You got to think like, because again, background automotive. If you look at cars always represent the countries they're from, for better or worse. German cars always built for the Autobahn. Doesn't matter if it's a Golf or a Mercedes S-Class.
Right.
A Golf is a compact car designed to go on the Autobahn, right? So they're usually stable, they got good driving, all that kind of stuff. American cars are built for driving long distances and hauling a lot of stuff with you because that's what North Americans do. We drive long distance and we got a lot of shit. Why? Because we got a lot of space. When you have to cram your entire life into Copenhagen, you can have a lot of stuff.
Right.
So Ford builds trucks, Peugeot builds small cars, BMW builds a 3 Series. I think in Canada, this is why I find it interesting, is because you guys talked the 303. There are a lot of Lee Enfields in BC, but I would say there's probably more lever guns because we're in dense woods. There are not a lot of places that people are going to go use guns in BC and be able to see farther than 80 yards.
But we're not
are
just
they
talking
in the
about
public consciousness
BC.
as much?
No, that's true, but that's why I think it's interesting to answer the question because you can't help it, right? Like I haven't grown up in Saskatchewan or Ontario. I don't know what the culture's there, but I like to ask the question because then I go, like, oh, interesting to note. In BC, I'd say it's the SKS and the 3030 because both ballistically, I think it's interesting. They're both pretty much identical, and they're both used very. It's almost like if I was to define BC and Alberta, I'd almost say the Winchester 3030 is your grandpa's, and you have the SKS.
Yep.
Because you're hunting in similar conditions, you're shooting the same animals with ballistically the same round.
Yeah.
You just happen to buy the $149 or $199 SKS because the 3030s were crazy expensive, and because you're a millennial, you've been saving for a house since you were 12 years old.
Yeah.
So like it all gets tied together, right?
It's interesting you were saying that when you were talking about the sub 2000 before. I was thinking about a buddy of mine who they've got large plot of land is partially forest, partially pasture, and they've got cattle, and so they've got cattle on the pasture, but they have a large number of predatory animals in the copious wooded area.
Mhm.
So they're constantly protecting during calving season. They're constantly protecting against coyotes and wolves.
I want to know where
And-
this is.
I will
After
tell you
show.
off air.
Good.
And his father, who is in his late 50s, and his father before him, they always carried, when they were out ranching, they always carried the Enfield number 4 Mark 1. And he, however, does not carry that rifle. He carries a sub 2000.
I mean, I love mine. I will say, anyone listening, if you're thinking about a sub 2000, they're great guns. You absolutely must buy all of the M Carbo upgrades. And I don't mean that as a joke.
Yeah.
I don't mean
Yeah.
that as a joke. The feed ramp, if you live in Canada, the feed ramp will crack. The Gen 2 sub 2000 feed ramp is very brittle. And if you use it at sub 10 below, anything like that, the last round, especially if you're using hollow point bullets, will crack the feed ramp. Just buy the stainless steel feed ramp. It takes like 10 minutes to put in. It's great. But it's interesting that you mentioned the ranchers that using Lee Enfields because Kelowna's basically winery and tourist town, but around it is all ranch land. It's all cattle. And every ranch I've ever been to, it's all been ATV and horseback and 30-30. It's lever guns.
Really?
It's old school Western stuff because admittedly, if you're buying a horse scabbard, it's made for a Winchester.
True.
Like
Yeah.
it goes in there, it comes back out. I mean, I can't.
You say that,
for me.
and I work in agriculture. No shit. But what I see is farmers either carrying a Tavor in their combine or tractor because it's nice and compact, easy to carry. It's in 223. So they could accurately take out coyotes or whatever that they come across, hogs or whatever. But then also the guys that are running cattle are carrying a 45 Colt Rossi ranch hand, like legit, like in a little holster on their leg or on the side of their saddle, and they're
And that's
running
what you're
cattle
seeing common. Like
lot.
that's
Very
the rule,
common.
not the
Yep.
exception.
very common.
Hey, man,
And
cowboys love the West.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and especially with
it
the
works
price
too.
with the price point of the Rossi, and then with the availability of components, you can get 45 long coat components anywhere. You walk into any gun store, they have lead projectiles with brass and ready to rock. Like it's good to go. So
And this
I
is
don't know.
like,
I think those
it's back to
guys-
that comment.
I
What?
think those guys plus Chris's buddy that carries the Kel-Tec are gonna learn lessons real quick about range and coyotes
True.
and wolves.
But when you're pulling a calf
sure.
out of a coyote or a cow's ass, and you see a coyote that snuck up
That's
on you
what I'm
from 100
talking
yards away, they're just grabbing
Yeah.
that thing out of their leg holster and getting the fuck out of here. Boom! If they hit it or not, great.
Yeah.
That thing's
I
fucking
suppose.
off. right?
when he's doing actual predator control, when he's not calving or whatever, he's using a 7mm Magnum Mauser. That's what he's hunting coyote and wolf with.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're literally talking like we're not allowed to have handguns.
Defensive more.
So
Yeah.
what can I have on me
I
if something
gotcha.
takes me by surprise, sort of thing?
Or-
Well, these are guys
or-
like out in Merritt, they're pounding fence posts into the ground.
Exactly.
They've got a lever or a
Exactly.
shotgun.
Yeah.
And I think
Well-
it's back to the point where first of all, it's a huge lesson in you cannot make rules about guns. Because even here, we're talking about a very limited subset of agricultural users of firearms in Canada. We're talking literally hundreds, potentially thousands of people. And yet we've already talked about 5, 6 different kinds of guns.
Tens
because-
of thousands.
If you run a combine, you've got a cab that you can put a Tavor in a rack and keep it safe. If you're riding a horse, a bolt action fouls the scabbard. Like it's,
Sure.
a sub 2K gives you the rapid fire follow up and it's
Or
stick side. So you
the
get a
min-
different ball game.
Like Scotty Cross says, the Mini 14 has
Yeah.
an option called the ranch hand
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
That's exactly, and that's
Yeah.
what it's meant for. So
Well, and talking about the Cowboys loving cowboy stuff, I will admit that prior to getting the sub 2000, I remember a couple of years ago, he was kicking around the idea of grabbing a Henry mare's leg in 44 Magnum and just putting a buttstock on it.
Why not, right?
a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys.
It's
I
a
thought
practical
about it.
gun.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I say, like, Canadians have to think about what the ways that we use guns differently. Because, I mean, those Rossi ranch hands are not, you'd probably rather carry a handgun around as a cowboy because it's easier.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't know a single cowboy that wouldn't carry a 30-30 in the scabbard too. Because,
And,
a 45 is great for whatever, but we do have bear here and you might want an actual carbine. But I think it's
Pardon me,
also, like I said, it's
let me make a caveat here. It's not the Rossi ranch hand. It's a Rossi mare's leg. That's what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I
my
got you.
bad.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
the little truncated guy
Yeah, that's like
made
that
famous
long.
by Steve McQueen
That's right.
in The Shootist.
or if you want to get really nerdy, Dan and Chris will get this reference. Who carried that in a famous Joss Whedon show that took place in space? That was a western.
Firefly.
It wasn't
There
Mal.
you go. No, it was Gina.
I mean, the
Torres.
second season is great.
Yep.
The second season.
You mean the movie Serenity? Anyway,
I thought the second
No, it's
season
just whenever
was
someone brings up Fireflies, I'd be like, the second season's great. Just be like,
Yeah.
I have that salt. You must have that salt
oh
too.
yes, oh yes.
I always thought the second season was a little light on content myself.
It was a little light on content. They didn't aim to misbehave quite as much as they should have.
That's
Oh.
true.
Kurt, it was canceled after season 1. Kurt,
Probably for good reason.
how
Honestly,
dare
no.
you?
Like you should have been
One
out
of the best shows
working
ever.
a job.
It really was. Yeah.
Space Western. But I think it's also a testament to, like I was going to say, of the culture. Like we talk about the small gangs and the culture that gangs have. It's no different than the culture that cowboys have, where if they grew up in an agricultural environment where it's more farming, they might have 303s likely because I suspect you guys have longer distances out there. Whereas here it's largely cattle and timber. So you're talking
would
literally like you'll
suspect.
drive a Forest Service road with like trees every 6 feet kind of thing, and there'll be an entire herd of cows walking through it. It's really weird when you first see it because it's kind of like, hey, forest cows. Weird.
That's well.
Okay.
You don't have to drive that far to find forest cows. I mean, my buddy, like their land is only about an hour and 45 from Saskatoon. The guy that I was
from
talking
my house,
about.
it's like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
But
well, we have to
Kelowna.
get through the prairie area first. Still.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Everything in Saskatchewan's an hour away, isn't it?
Well,
One turn and an hour away.
yeah. If you don't want to be able to see it from your house, it's at least an hour away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saskatchewan, or you can watch your dog run away for a week.
Well,
The jokes probably get old. What are the other good Saskatchewan jokes you guys?
no, that's it. There's just the one.
That's it?
Yeah.
No one makes jokes about how easy it is to draw?
That's
I
all
said
well
there's
and
only
good, but
one.
You make your jokes about being able to see your dog run away for 3 days. I look at it like I can see you motherfuckers coming for 3 days.
Yeah, the Huns
See,
don't stand a
there's a
chance.
positive in everything.
Yep. I'm not sure what the British Columbian response to that is. Like, we can see it coming for like a solid 20 minutes, but we're not
Right.
sure what to do about it either.
Right.
Did you bring cash with you? Because that's really what we need.
Yeah.
Through your pot squinty eyes, where after you smoke too much of the funky grass.
That's just Vancouver, though, isn't it? That doesn't extend too far into the interior, does it?
You'd be surprised.
Well, I know in
Oh, no, all
Kelowna,
of BC.
Kelowna is just mini
All
Vancouver.
of BC
All of
loves a little
BC?
toki toki. That's a BC wide thing. From the
You
island on up.
crazy fuckers.
I don't know. I don't know. It's BC is weird. Vancouver's weird. I will say that. I lived in Vancouver for my entire childhood. It's a different place,
Yeah.
but
Not for Rooster.
it's hard to own guns in. I'll tell you that. I mean, I ran Calibre we lived in Tawasin. For those that know, it's like the super southern stretch of Vancouver. It ends actually in a weird little peninsula of the United States. Like it has a little
It does.
thing hanging off of it, like that. It's American.
I'm sorry, what are you describing?
Yeah.
It's a proboscis of sorts. I think you could
That's
think of it. Like a
right,
lower
okay.
proboscis.
Right.
One
go with that, a
could
lower-
describe it as flaccid, if you will.
Yeah, it really hangs down there. Called Point Roberts. It's a lovely little community.
Are we really going to end the show on dangling? proboscis?
We are.
I think
So
we better.
What better? Would you prefer it was angled upwards, or
I really wouldn't.
Hit the button, Sean.
that's right. I can't yet. We're not done yet. Dan, where can everybody find you?
calibremag.ca, Daniel Fritter on Twitter. That's all the places that I hope you can find me. Don't find me anywhere else. Thank you.
What's your social insurance number? I'm just kidding.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. PASSWO.
That's amazing. That's the same. That's the same combination I have on my luggage.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kurt, do you have any
There's no
shout-outs this week?
Spaceballs jokes they don't get.
That was a Spaceballs reference there, Kurt.
Oh, okay. Sure. Shout outs. Let's go with the Extreme Range Outfitters. Check them out at their new store in Saskatoon.
You bastard.
Yeah, sorry.
They were going to be my shout out.
You can
Okay,
shout them
so-
out too.
Doug at March Scopes. He's doing his best to get me that scope in time for King of 2 Miles this
Have you
fall.
had a March scope yet?
Not yet.
Oh, you're in for a treat. I've got one.
That's what I'm hearing.
It's-
Yeah, betcha.
Real
Awesome.
nice.
Good. Yeah, check him out. March Scopes Canada.
Cool. Christopher.
Well, my shout out was going to be to XRO because I don't know if Kurt said it. I stopped listening as soon as I started frothing with rage when he mentioned
You
it.
need a hug, buddy.
I do. But anyway, I'm shouting them out because same reason Kurt probably. They just changed locations. They went from this tiny little shack where everything was all plugged into one little area in the, what would you call that, northern down? No, that's kind of the southern northern industrial area. Whatever.
South Central.
They're now
Sure.
on Miller Avenue. They're in a huge building. It looks fantastic. You can see pictures of the interior on their website, and it looks diggity dog.
Yep.
You know what? There's no reason to go to Cabela's. Not that there was before, but
Right.
why
There's
would
never
you?
a reason to go to
There's
Cabela's.
never a reason.
Do you want to buy a gun from a 14-year-old unknowledgeable counterperson?
Yeah, right. Hey.
I mean,
No, I'd rather buy a gun from Extreme Range Outfitters in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
From Gordy. Yes, sir.
Slick.
Anyway,
so slick.
Well, there you go. My quick shout out is to Steve Huck at Graybirch Solutions. Did some ammo testing this last weekend. Looks like SK Standard Plus is the winner. I got to take it out to 100
Really?
and 200. Yeah. Yeah. It
Really?
looks like,
Mine didn't like the SK Plus.
you saw the targets. They look good. Anyway.
I
but
thought that the sport looked good.
Well, but it's more about availability. It's more about availability right now. Yeah. So check them out, graybirchsolutions.com. They got all your products there. Awesome. Thanks, Dan, for joining the show. Yeah, there it is. Nice stock.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a great chat. I think we probably had a little bit too much fun.
We solved at least half of the world's problems.
At least.
Only someone would listen to us.
Right.
God damn
Well, we
it.
identified them. I don't know if we solved them.
Yeah.
You can find us at danielforprimeminister.com.
Yeah. Draft Dan. Please don't.
His Twitter handle is mustache wax and guns. 1, 2, 3.
And that's one of the more polite ones you could have come up with. I'm glad that you didn't go where that could have gone based on the white bag magazines, but yeah.
His other handle.
I am on Twitter.
Ron Jeremy 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
I don't even know what my actual Twitter handle is now. If you were to ask me, Jesus.
I don't know. You are fairly active on there. You pop up on my feed quite a bit, but
I do post a hell of a lot, but I don't even know what it is. I should change it to something mustache. I did put the mustache photo on Twitter so people would recognize me, but
nice.
I try.
Well, let's end this shit. So big shout out to John Johnston and his band, the Dirt Road Scholars, for the kick-ass music, and we will see you next week. Peace out. Fucking